Hi everyone, I am so excited to be with you today here at the Future Assistant Summit 2020. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with me today. Hey y'all, before we get started, I thought I would intro myself to you a little bit. So my name is Melissa Peoples and I am coming to you all the way from Austin, Texas. I am an executive assistant coach and trainer. I have been in the industry supporting C-suite level executives all the way from higher education to high tech for the last 25 years. And now I teach and train administrative professionals how to crush it in their career. I have a YouTube channel that is dedicated to administrative professionals, and I spend a lot of my time teaching productivity and strategizing with organizations to help them close the gaps, become more strategic, and to increase their team's productivity. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. So let's talk about what we're going to go over today. Since we only have 20 minutes together, today's session is really going to be about theory and overview. We're going to talk about what an intentional meeting culture looks like, 4 ways that you can realign your company's meeting culture, and tips to get you started. We are not going to be able to deep dive today into all the things that can make your team more productive, but I promise you that I have lots of content out there. You can follow me on my website or YouTube and connect with me, and I'd be happy to share with you all the details on how you can implement this within your organization. So just level setting. Today is theory, this is overview, this is not going to be deep diving into how you're going to fix your organization's bad meeting habits. So let's talk about it. What is intentional meeting culture? So to me, there are 4 keys that really drive intentional meeting culture within any organization. Number 1, it's driving a clear framework of what meetings should look like. Studies show that more than 80% of employees have never been formally trained on how to run a meeting, much less how to strategically plan them and the different types of meetings. So this is really critical for us as administrative professionals to increase our business acumen so that we are driving a clear framework for our organization so that everyone can be more productive with their time and we can really focus on driving strategic impact rather than the cycle of meeting just to meet. Number 2 is a strategic focus. Very often we will be asked to schedule meetings that have zero context. You're not sure what type of a meeting it is or how long or who the key players are. So having an intentional meeting culture really does require a strategic focus on how and when and where you are going to spend your time. Number 3 is standardizing implementation. So very often, again, there's no process for where the agendas are or where people can go to follow up on actions. Some people in your organization might use a collaborative tool such as OneNote or Google Docs or Google Keep or any of the collaborative tools, and others might not. So standardizing how your organization not only runs meetings, but where the information can be found really will drive your entire organization's productivity to a completely different level. And number 4 is thoughtful investment. You want to make sure that you are investing your time both with you, your executive, and your team very wisely. I am a huge fan of time blocking and batching days. And if you follow me at all on my YouTube channel, you know how I feel about those things. But really, limiting contextual switching is really key in that thoughtful investment of time. When you're thinking about contextual switching, it can take you up to 21 minutes to get your brain back onto the topic that you were focused on before you were interrupted. So when you're thinking about strategic planning and investment of time, really considering when do you offer that meeting that somebody asked you for. If they asked for a one-on-one, do you just offer the soonest time that's available, or are you strategic and thoughtful about where you are investing your executive's time? The when, the how, and why is really important so that you are helping to drive that contextual switching down for your executive business partner and making sure that they're able to focus on the right things and spending their time in the areas of the business that are going to increase revenue, increase employee engagement, and really help them accomplish their company's strategic goals and visions. So I want to talk a little bit about the 4 ways that you can really drive this within your organization. So number 1, it's really key that you build a framework. Every meeting should be defined around a very specific framework. However, the reality is that very rarely happens. Most of the time, someone comes to us and they ask us to schedule a meeting and we don't know what meeting type it is. I will say that for those of you who are unaware, there are typically about 16 major meeting types. Most of us, you could probably bucket them into about 5, but there's 5 major meeting types. Every meeting should have a purpose, every meeting should have an objective, an expected outcome or next steps, an agenda if it is over 30 minutes, and you should also have a pre-read if there is any decision or information that needs to be consumed before the meeting. Now, if you are like me, in our careers, very rarely as administrative professionals do we get all of this information ahead of time. Now, some of us might try to get it from specific members of our team, but the key here is really working together with your administrative team to make sure that you are all driving forward this framework, that you are all requesting the same information from your team so that everyone in your entire organization gets used to building this very important productivity habit. Okay, so number 2, let's talk about level setting expectations. I don't know about you, but in my career as an administrative professional, there have been countless times where I have connected with team members who have had no idea, not just for them, but for my executive, of what the meeting was about, what was the purpose, why they were actually meeting, what's the outcome, and very often they were meeting just to meet. If you take the extra step of level setting those expectations before the meeting ever begins, you are saving your organization thousands of dollars every single week. Just clearly identifying what the meeting type is. Obviously, a brainstorming meeting is going to function very differently than a decision-making meeting. A project update is going to be very different than a one-on-one update. So having all of this information ahead of time before you schedule it is really key to, 1, making sure that you're scheduling the appropriate amount of time for those meetings, and then 2, understanding all of the follow-up and the actions that are related to those specific meeting types. It's also really important for you to know what the meeting objective is, as well as the expected outcome. Some meetings really do require a pre-read. Most executives, especially if this is a decision meeting or if it is a project update, they need to consume the content if they're expected to have an opinion when they attend this meeting. When that doesn't happen, an executive can go into a meeting blindly and yet be expected to either consume the content in the meeting and then provide a solution or decision, or they spend 30 minutes going over the topic and then they have to reschedule another meeting so they can provide feedback. So you want to make sure that if there's a pre-read, if there's a decision that needs to be made, or if this is an update and they need to consume the information, that you have the deck ahead of time with enough time that your executive or your team has time to consume it, talk about it, form opinions, and actually come to that meeting with a solid plan. So let's talk about collaborative agendas. Gone are the days when you should be processing all of that information through your email. Ideally, you want to have all of your agendas set up in a collaborative space so that everyone that is involved has access to it, they have visibility, they can ask questions, and they can help drive the agenda versus everyone emailing it to you and you spending your time compiling it. So it's just easy and so much more productive if you put a collaborative agenda in place. So you can use things if you were in the Microsoft environment. Please use OneNote for meeting management. You can embed that in Teams. However, if you've never started using a collaborative tool yet, I would suggest start with OneNote and then you can progress to Teams later. If you're in the G Suite environment, you can use Google Docs or whatever app or tool that you prefer. Then you need to understand who the facilitator is. If you or your executive are not actually running this meeting, inside the invite, you need to clearly define who is actually facilitating this meeting. We're going to talk a little bit about why that's important on the next step, but just know that it's critical to know who's actually going to be running this meeting, who's responsible for it. Then you want to think about who has decision rights. Now, I can tell you there has been countless times where I have attended a meeting and they spend the entire time arguing about who actually has decision rights for this meeting. Well, if it makes sense, go ahead and make sure that you schedule a meeting between those executives before that session so that they can sort of figure that out ahead of time and they don't go into the meeting then trying to decide who has decision rights. So it's really critical that you can get ahead of all of this information. And then finally, you want to think about presentations. Not all meetings should have presentations. As a matter of fact, many don't need them. I cannot tell you the number of executives that I partner with when we're talking about collaboration, and they actually prefer that some meetings don't have presentations. If they do, they want them very simple, they want it standardized, but they want to spend more time asking questions and less time being presented to. So it's important that you understand your executives' preferences and their meeting styles and ask them what their preferences are on each meeting type and when they want to be presented to and when they don't want to be presented to. All right, so let's talk about best practices. Now, this is your opportunity to shine. You have the power unlike anyone else in your organization. When you start implementing and executing on these best practices for both you and your executive and your team, everyone will start to see that there's a change happening. And trust me when I say that everyone is generally looking for someone to stop the meeting madness, and that person gets to be you. You literally own the tool that is driving their life insane, and they just want someone to stop it. And you are the wonderful person that owns that calendar and can make the shift. So hopefully you're willing to put your cape on today and willing to take on that superpower and make that shift. So these are some best tips on anatomies for really great meetings, making sure that you start on time regardless if everyone is in the room. They will very quickly learn that meetings start on time at our company, and if you're not there, please watch the recording. Number 2, you want to make sure that you review the meeting objectives before the meeting starts. So kind of going back to that level setting the conversation before meetings happen. The important thing here when we're talking about knowing who the facilitator is right here. The facilitator should be doing all of these things. Knowing how to steer the conversation if it's going off track, knowing that they need to track actions and decisions. Typically, you do not want to transcribe the meeting. Thankful for technology that can help us do that and record the sessions instead. Make sure that you're just tracking action, decisions, and anything super critical. You do not want to be writing down everything that everyone says. Record it and let people watch it later. Another critical piece to productive meetings is course correction. If you are in the middle of the meeting and someone is going over their time or they're talking about something that needs to be tabled and taken offline, the facilitator needs to be able to drive that and to course correct the team and bring them back on track. The last 10 minutes of every meeting should really be about closing it out and thinking about next steps. This is your opportunity to review action items and next steps, who's responsible, when you need it by, and going over any last minute details. And then finally, you want to make sure that everyone is able to leave on time so they can get to their next meeting. So having a very intentional and purposeful meeting does take a lot of front end work, but it saves your company thousands of dollars, not just in salary, but it also changes the way that people approach meetings within your organization. You'll find that they will be more attentive, they will stop multitasking, they will lean in when they know that this is a very purposeful and intentional meeting. And number 4, you're going to increase productivity. Collaborative tools for meeting minutes, actions, and next steps is a way for you to help drive the process and not just the content. When you have a collaborative agenda and meeting minutes, actions where everyone can clearly see when their actions are due, what the next steps are, it really does decrease email traffic and saves you more time. You're also going to be able to increase the transparency and visibility of all of those actions. If at any point your executive needs an update, if you can go grab it, that's wonderful. If they're interested to learn more about it at 2 o'clock in the morning when they can't sleep, they always know where they can go to find out all the information they need in regards to that one meeting. Next, it empowers your team to collaborate. When you have collaborative agendas and you're pushing this into a space where everyone knows where to go, it's standardized, it's the same process for all the executives across your whole organization. Everybody is using OneNote. If you are in the Microsoft environment and you've all agreed this is how to do this, it really does increase your whole team's collaboration and manage the process. Your role as an administrative professional in 2020 should not be to manage the content. Most executives and most teams are very technical savvy. They're very capable to do that. Your job has to be pushing forward the process so that you're increasing productivity for both you, your executive, and your whole team. I love this quote by Albert Einstein, and he said, "We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we use to create them." I cannot tell you how many organizations, the very first thing that they say to me is, "We are drowning in meetings." Studies show that over 95% of employees say that they are overwhelmed by the amount of meetings that they attend. When you think about the level of low work-life immersion, the high level of employee burnout, all because meeting cultures tend to be very haphazard. There's no plan and no framework. People are just doing whatever they think works best instead of having a strategic plan and goal to make sure that your whole organization is driving forward with one path, with one vision. It really does make a huge difference. So hopefully I've convinced you that your organization should think about having an intentional meeting culture. So here's some steps to get you started. You want to start small. You want to build habits and deliver quick wins. So I have been teaching and training organizations to do this for the last 7 years. And I promise you that you have to start small if you want to get your team to adopt best practices long term. Getting your team to do something very simple by always having an agenda for meetings that are over 30 minutes, or clearly defining what a meeting type is. Start small with those very quick wins and then build out a productivity plan that will help you get there in the long term. Number 2, build a task force. Out of all the companies that I have helped implement this process, I have never met one person who has said, "You know what, I am happy and content with our company meeting culture, please don't change a thing." Every single company I have ever implemented this with really is struggling, and they're just wanting someone to raise their hand, to volunteer, to help make the change. Number 3, empower your team. Driving best practices not only will empower your team to build powerful productivity habits, but it will show them that you as an organization care about their long-term success, and you care about whether or not they have burnout, and you care about their work-life immersion. So you've decided that you wanted to do this. Now what do? You just start talking. It all starts with one simple conversation. An easy way to frame this conversation is this: "Hey, I'm very curious. How do you feel about our company meeting culture? I'd love to hear your thoughts and your pain points." And then let them go. Most people are going to tell you, "Wow, we're having too many meetings. I'm not very sure where the agenda is. I'm not prepared when I go to these meetings and I'm drowning." Once you start to gather information via one-on-ones and coffee chats in different ways, you'll start to hear common themes and you'll know where you can attack first. Number 2 is calendar analysis. You can definitely work, if you're in the Microsoft environment, you can use My Analytics or Insights, same tool, to make sure that you are considering how much time that your team, your executive, are spending in meetings, and really analyzing how much time that they are spending in unproductive meetings. If you are in the G Suite environment, there's not a tool that is powered by AI, but you can manually look at the calendar and see where everybody is spending their time. Number 3, agree on a framework. Starting very simply and deciding how you're going to manage meetings going forward, whether it be implementing a new process on where all agendas will go, whether you say that everyone is going to have their meetings sent out on Teams, that you're going to connect Teams and Outlook and OneNote. There's a fabulous integration there. But whatever that small process is, build the framework, take it step by step, get your team to adopt the one thing, and then keep building. And number 4, you want to demonstrate what those best practices are. So whatever you decide that you're going to do to make the shift, let's just say for this example that you're going to be consistently highlighting the type of a meeting it is. Once you start to do it, people are going to start asking you, and this is your opportunity to evangelize this new process and productivity hack all the way across your organization. Once you start getting people on board and you're demonstrating those best practices, you are absolutely going to be able to keep building this productivity hack on top of productivity hack until, before you know it, your entire team is being more productive and efficient with their intentional meeting culture. I am so excited that you've spent the last 25 minutes with me talking how you can drive intentional meeting culture within your organization. Again, I cannot reiterate with you enough that this really is not, one, this is definitely not for board meetings. These are for standard operating procedures within your organization, but this is absolutely something that we own as administrative professionals. We have full autonomy when it comes to calendar management, and we need to be the ones to raise our hands to say we are going to take that step and change the way that our organization functions. Especially now in the midst of change and this crisis that everyone is dealing with, this is certainly an opportunity for you to become a much more strategic business partner with your executive team. So hopefully I have whet your appetite for productivity and meeting management, encouraged you to drive change towards intentional meeting culture. Now again, since it was only 20 minutes, I know that you probably have a million questions. So please connect with me either on my YouTube channel. You can reach me on my website at melissapeoples.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or on Instagram. So I would be so excited to hear what your big takeaways are. I'd love it if you want to connect with me on my website. I will make sure that I send this deck out to you. So if you have any questions, please feel free and don't hesitate to reach out, and enjoy the rest of the conference, everyone. Have a great day, y'all. Bye.